Welcome to the Dream Journal. From the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, the Dream Journal is a weekly show where we explore the power of nighttime dreams through conversations with dream experts and with you.
So there's no those vital minutes, time is keenly found. We are not alone, water over stone, even if you're by yourself, even if you're by yourself.
Today's music is called Rubicon. Is there any hope for authenticity? Today we speak with Jungian analyst Susan Schwartz, who describes her work on the imposter syndrome and the fragility of the self. I am your host, Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork, and welcome to the Dream Journal. The Dream Journal is a weekly podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review. But most importantly, tell your friends. We are all about getting people to talk about the dream, and that's one way you can start the conversation about dreams. Is what podcasts are you listening to lately? Archives are also available at Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and you can find them also at ksqd.org/the-dream-journal. We are also on PRX, so if you subscribe to the Public Radio Exchange, look up the Dream Journal and consider contacting your local community radio station about syndicating the Dream Journal. Or even buying one or two shows here and there. We'd love to get on the air to get more people talking about their dreams. I had a dream yesterday morning. There was a couple different segments, but what's really sticking in my mind right now is a moment when I am on a sled and I have my arms around this 10-year-old boy. Well, he says he's 10 years old, but he looks more like 4 or 5, so that's an interesting mismatch. But we're sliding down this big, gradual slope at a stunning sunset, and the land is flat and wide in all directions, and then off to the left and ahead of us is the ocean, and I can see all the ocean reflecting back the amazing colors of the sky. And even the ground, even the land around us has these glints of those amazing magenta and orange sunset colors. And I have my arms wrapped around the boy, and there's just something about connection with that part of myself, whatever that might be. And I'm really reveling in that image. Our guest will be Susan E. Schwartz, PhD. Trained in Zurich as a Jungian analyst, and she is also a clinical psychologist. She presents in the U.S. and worldwide. Her book, The Absent Father Effect on Daughters, has been translated into several languages. Her newest book is also published by Routledge and is entitled The Imposter Syndrome and the As-If Personality Fragility of the Self. Her webpage is Susan Schwartz, PhD.com. Good morning, Dr. Schwartz. Hi. Your work is about the imposter syndrome. And, this is something that's really important to me because one of my big things about dreaming and really about life is authenticity. And how can I be my authentic self? Because there's so many times when I'm sort of off in the realm of fake it till you make it and feeling like an imposter. And let's just jump right into the topic. What's that for you?
Well, you just said a tremendous amount of things that totally fit with the imposter syndrome and the as-if personality. Faking it till you make it is one way of operating, but it's very tedious.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of energy. What about being real? And wouldn't that be the easiest way? And not just you, but all of us, would find out that, in fact, being real saves energy, is actually educational, and we find out that it is probably much more fun, basically.
Sounds right to me, but why is it so hard? Well, it seems like that would be the easiest route, to just say it like it is. What's so difficult about that?
You're right.
Huh?
It totally seems like it would be easiest. However, we learn through our culture, family, society, transgenerationally, people pressure us to be something that we are not. And we learn very early that being somebody else is sometimes preferred, even if those people that reinforce the somebody else, they don't mean it necessarily, but they kind of do.
Oh.
In the sense that, in the sense that when you're when you're little, you're supposed to make that tree green.
Right.
Right? But what if you want to make it purple?
Right.
and and then, it's as we're laughing, it totally fits, doesn't it? It's much more fun if it's purple, but we learn, sadly, that we have to make it green. And then
go ahead.
It becomes even more than that. It becomes this, it becomes that, it becomes how to act, how to dress, how to walk, how to think. And it becomes very narrow.
Right. Okay. So there's early forces that really put us into like conformity and expectations. So tell me what you mean by the as-if personality, and how does this fit in with what we're talking about here around authenticity?
Well, actually, they're quite similar. The as-if personality is another way of saying the imposter syndrome. The imposter syndrome has become a popularized word, or a way of describing things. Partly, I wonder if it has arisen even more from social media, because social media has given us a lot of wonderful things, but it has also given us this kind of pressure to fit in, to have a bunch of hits, to do whatever looks popular. And we learn to Photoshop ourselves. We learn to look and sound differently than who we are. So again, this kind of social pressure and the popularized version of be an imposter. The phrase as if began with a Freudian psychoanalyst in the 1940s, a woman who described this as attributable to women. It's quite interesting. And she said that these women are unanalyzable, and they also are rather vapid.
Oh, no.
That's what she described. Isn't that awful?
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, it's true. It's terribly horrible.
Very sexist.
But then, very sexist. But then after the 1940s, she kind of dropped out of the view of the world, in a sense, and the whole as-if personality description dropped out as well. And then a Jungian analyst named Hester Solomon kind of rebrought the word back, or the phrase back, in the early 2000s. And I took that and expanded it, the as-if personality, and linked it with the imposter syndrome. So I was linking what is popular with, a Jungian viewpoint, partly because I'm a Jungian analyst, but also because I think they both fit. They each describe a similar kind of thing, not a vapid personality, a full personality, which wants to reflect and bring itself out. So that's the other side of the imposter and the as if, is I'd like to take my mask off.
Right. Right. Okay. I'm just thinking about these women labeled as vapid, and it's so like those poor dears. I mean, I feel like they must be trapped in some kind of mask, like you say, behind a mask. And so maybe talk a little bit more about the idea of the masks and what that is about taking them off.
Well, we have all gone through that actual experience through COVID. So we were supposed to wear masks, and when we took the mask off, people saw our entire face. And I must say myself, I didn't see people who felt that they had to wear a mask. I said, if you have to wear a mask, we will do a Zoom, because I want to see your whole face. Mm-hmm. And what that meant to me was a revealing of the entire self, the expressive self, the face of who we are. Oftentimes, a facade also represents putting a different face on. And what we want to see in the being a total person and learning about yourself is taking the mask off.
Right. Okay, there's I mean, this is great. This is an interesting conversation. I had a little flurry of comments on my social media posts about this whole idea of the imposter syndrome, and people were talking about. There's particularly talking about people who were starting to practice as psychics, and then feeling like they were faking, feeling like that was a fake, and like, how do we trust ourselves? These impulses, which are sometimes not very loud, and so. Is there something about how do I learn to trust my impulses, even if they're not very loud and they seem kind of strange to my mind? So I feel like an imposter. So is this, what is coming up for you around this?
Yeah. But so you bring up a lot of interesting and important pieces there. One is the trust in oneself is what you learn as you take the mask off. And as you take the facade down, you learn that you're okay. By the experience of being, you learn it is all right to be. So it's kind of a double thing that really goes together and is essential. Those people who were mistrusting their impulses, they might question, wait a minute, isn't it important for me to follow my impulses?
Yeah.
Maybe it will lead me where I really need to go. Yeah, and yet we learn, don't follow those impulses, because it will take us, what should I say, out of the collective way to be, out of the way you're supposed to be, right. And maybe that's okay. Maybe it's quite interesting. Right?
Right.
It might be challenging. It's challenging the status quo, but it also might be very interesting.
Absolutely. Well, I think of humans as being domesticated animals, and that we have domesticated each other. And my first grade teacher, Mrs. Aronson, had us all sit down and shut up. Right? I was in a new school, meeting all these kids and all this interesting things in the classroom, and yet the teacher wanted us to save it for recess, and these kind of ways that we learn to small in our. And I think of this as how humans are domesticated. And of course, mom cooking dinner, don't bother me, I'm busy. All these ways that we learn to reject the different parts of our impulses.
Yeah. Well, you see, look at what you just said, and this is where again we learn very early in school. Everybody sit down on their mat and don't say anything, okay? And you have to eat the cookies whether you like them or not. Right? Yeah. The other thing, so how do we develop our individual taste?
Yeah.
I don't like those cookies. Well, they kind of get shoved at us, and the strength that it takes to say, "This is me. I want the different cookies," as well as the image of when you said about mothers cooking. We could say that the parents. How do we get the parents to pay attention to us and to us as we are different from what they expect us to be? And does anybody listen? So if so-and-so is busy doing this or that, the parents, how do we intercede? How do we get them to pay attention to us and to us when we are doing differently than what they expect of us?
Right.
Yes.
So,
It's a whole pitch for be your individual self.
yeah. Well, okay, but easier said than done. Would you have some advice? Like, what do you recommend?
Well, I'm going to go by some of the words that you've said, which is listen to your instincts. And if you can't, also watch your dreams. See where you stop yourself in the day. See where I'll use the dreams again.
Yeah.
See where your dreams are guiding you. See what your friends say. Do they cheer you on and say, wow, that is interesting. I wouldn't do it, but that's interesting that you are. Rather than, you shouldn't do that because who knows why. So very subtly throughout the day, one can watch oneself and see where you limit yourself through your thoughts and your feelings, where you expand yourself. I wish I could do this or that. I wish I could have this or that. Okay, make it happen. In other words, to challenge oneself, to allow what you want.
Okay. So you mentioned dreams. So how would you bring in some of the dream work to these ideas? You mentioned two different things to look for in dreams. Where do you stop yourself? And then also what kind of guidance is coming from your dreams? Like it's interesting. I don't know. I don't think you got a chance to hear my dream I shared at the top of the hour, but I'm sliding down this amazing sunset landscape, and I have my arms around this little boy. And, for me, there could be a bit of guidance there about embracing my child's self.
It could be embracing your child's self, but it's also a male child self.
That's true.
Okay, so it says, how do you embrace the male child self of you, and how do you help him grow within you? So how are you accessing what is different from you in a younger form to grow into a more adult form? The other piece of the dream is you are sliding down a what?
It's just a big open landscape. I'm on some kind of a sled. I don't know if we're on rails or something, but we're sitting on top of something. I can't really see what it is we're on, actually. It's something like a sled or a scooter. Or
did you mention something about the sun, or did I
the sun's going down. It's sunset, so there's amazing colors everywhere. That's one of the parts of the image is the amazing colors.
Well, the colors, of course, colors are so important as well, and for what they symbolize. But it almost presents like a rainbow.
Yeah.
Many colors, so many opportunities, many choices. The sunset might represent a certain time of life. It might represent a certain, the world is going, you're going towards a certain direction, which is different than the sunrise. It might be a sunset on a certain piece of whatever you're doing in your life, there might be a change.
That's
And from
interesting.
the sunset, of course, the moon rises. And after the moon rises and sets, the sun comes again. So it represents kind of a life cycle.
That strikes a chord with me. Yeah.
Okay. And, okay. So, just as you said, how does somebody access themselves in the dream?
Yeah.
As people talk about the dream, when it strikes a chord, there you go. Huh? Okay. Strikes a chord, there's the real self. When you say, "All right, there's the real self," there's no facade. The mask is off. The real self is shining.
Oh, that's so helpful. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I use that a lot around dreams. Like when you have an aha moment, like then when I feel like I'm on the right track with understanding the dream. But now you're talking about applying that to waking life as well. It's like, what is it
Oh,
that
yeah.
strikes a chord with me? Oh, I love that.
Exactly. And the striking the chord is like accessing the reality of who one is, a resonance with your real being, and it provides a guide, a guidepost, a guidepost. So, so your dream leaves a question. What are you going to do with that child in your arms? And you don't know what you're sliding on. Something.
I don't.
Who knows?
I don't know. It's exciting. It isn't scary. Well, it does eventually become scary when I realize I'm not sure how I'm going to get back. But it's fun and actually kind of peaceful and exhilarating at the same time at first. And then I kind of, interesting. Then I stop myself and I
there you go.
get scared like, how am I going to get back? Well, maybe the point is not to get back. Maybe I'm going to something new. Like you talked about the sunset on a time in my life. And
yeah. Well, I was wondering when you said that, I was thinking as well, why do you have to go back?
right.
Right? The direction of the dream is going down, but why are you wanting to go back? Going down is an interesting direction also in the dream because going down is like a psychological descent into oneself. It's like understanding yourself more. It when you go down, when you get to the bottom, there's the ascent. So again, we're in the life cycle, the down and the up.
Right.
Nothing wrong with down.
Well, since I have a real live Jungian on the line, I wonder if I could ask you about the symbolism of down versus up. This is something that comes up in my groups a lot. Like, down is like, it can be like going deeper into myself, but sometimes I wonder if it can also be like a level of depression and then going up can be spiritual or it could be heady. I mean, both true, all true. Or what is your sense of that symbology?
Yeah, well, I would agree with you because I was thinking when you said about the going down, I was also thinking about depression, but I was thinking about the value of depression because the going down is really a going into yourself. When you're depressed, you go inside, and the going inside allows you to find your treasures hard to attain. This is what Jung says, the treasure hard to attain. It's such an interesting phrase and it means you go down and then you ascend. So it seems like your direction is like right.
Interesting. The value of depression. My goodness, I never thought I would heard that phrase, but I see what you mean. The going inside and
yeah.
Okay.
And so part of this whole taking a mask off means you're going to see the world differently.
Yeah.
It means your perception of you and the world are going to take a turn. And that will enrich the entire personality. If you have a mask on, you're going to be kind of stilted and you won't allow not just you, but any of us, won't allow the flexibility that it takes to take the mask off.
Okay. So is this kind of a persona we're talking about, right? These masks, this
Yeah.
persona.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how is this different from shadow, right? I mean, maybe it's, see, this is,
Well, I was just, when you said persona, I was just thinking shadow. Exactly. hmm But
Okay.
usually, the person with the imposter story and the as if personality tries to hide the shadow. But the shadow is not just stuff we don't like about ourselves, it is also the pearls that we are not accessing of our potential and who we are. So the shadow, if you're hiding the shadow, how are you going to access your real self? And if you think about it, those people who are like, they're perfect, everything looks fine, they've got all this outer stuff in order, they're kind of boring.
Could
Aren't
this
they?
be the word vapid coming around again?
Yeah. It's kind
I
of,
have the
but
perfect home. I am the ideal wife. My children are perfect. And where's all that stuff churning around underneath us?
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's far more interesting when someone has all those layers, kind of, the stuff we think is so awful. But it actually is quite interesting because it carries questions. Where will I go with this? What do I want to do? Who am I really? And the shadow carries pieces that we want to resolve inside of ourselves and understand. It's not to make everything light.
Yeah.
It's to say I can face the things that don't look so great, but also face the potential that I need to use.
Oh, like,
You see,
yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, like, so I could never, be an artist, or like me, I could never write a book. But how well has that happened? This is happening. So, like, these are some of the pearls that hide in our shadows. You're saying, like, some of these impulses, some of these pearls in the shadow.
Exactly. But, even as you say, write a book. So I wrote this book,
Yeah.
but it's not to say that at the beginning of writing it, I knew how it would evolve. I mean, I had ideas, but I had to pull out potential. I had to pull out the work. I had to keep with it. I didn't know what would happen. And it's like that question, I don't know, which allows us to create. And it's kind of paradoxical because it allows the creation, but it also faces us with, what if I can't?
Right.
But
Oh,
also, but also, what if I can? You see? I just wanted to go 1 minute back to your dream.
Sure.
Your dream could have a lot of potential in it because the child is young. And the young child represents potential, the yet to be developed, symbolically.
Oh, I see.
So, it's a very full dream. The colors of the sunset are also full. You could say it's full of potential.
Ah, absolutely. So there's a sunset on one part of who I am, perhaps something new, but I'm embracing something new. Oh. Ooh, this is very exciting.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, and I would say that the shadow also carries this paradox of what can be developed and also what is the stuff that's getting in the way. So it carries the paradox.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. This is Dr. Susan Schwartz, and you're listening to The Dream Journal. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to be back. We're going to talk. I'm going to ask some more questions of Dr. Schwartz. One of the topics that I'm particularly interested in is aging, image, and illusion, like the views of longevity in the modern culture. So, and then also, where do I belong? There's some topics I'd like to open up with you, Susan. We are broadcast live from the KSQD studios in Santa Cruz and co-broadcast live in San Jose. by KCXU. This is the Dream Journal. Welcome back. Next week, we will be speaking to the host of the Webdelics podcast, Scott Mason himself. He was on about in April, I do believe, and so you'll have a wild ride coming up. He is a very dynamic speaker talking about psychedelics. So I also want to say hello again to Dr. Susan Schwartz. Your new book is called The Imposter Syndrome and the As-If Personality, Fragility of the Self. And you've sent me, there's a discount code from the publisher Routledge. Is it okay to mention that on the air, Susan?
Please. Yes, please do.
Okay, so the discount code, you just have to contact Routledge. The code is SMA38, and you'll get a special deal on the imposter syndrome. So, Dr. Schwartz, we are talking about this imposter syndrome and really persona and the sense of self. And I wanted to come ask you about some of your ideas about cultural views of longevity, and like in our culture. Getting older, talk about sunset in my dream. We're all getting older. And it seems like, with ageism that's we got a lot of young worship in our culture. What is all that, and is there another way to view aging?
Well, I certainly hope so. I would tell you. But I do think one of and this feeds into the imposter syndrome and the as-if personality, which is the United States youth-oriented culture, where anything above a certain age is considered a horrendous decline. Yeah. Not just a decline, a horrendous decline. And I think it's related to our fears of death. We don't talk about it. Right. We do not talk about the vibrancy of aging, the vibrancy of living a complete life, the ability to keep on creating, dreaming, loving, being. And I think that the more people that realize, wait, and you see, we're all living longer than we used to. Right. So we really have a responsibility to honor the entirety of the life cycle. I think it's debilitating to our psyches and our entire being to not pay attention to the fact that you can have a vibrant life no matter how old you are. Yes. And you can create no matter how old you are, and you can do whatever you want no matter how old you are. Well, you can't be in the Olympics. But you definitely, right? But you definitely can be active. You can have a body. This is the other thing that happens with ageism. You don't have a body. Someone said to me with all seriousness, well, don't expect anyone to see you, because once you get to a certain age, they're talking about themselves, nobody sees you. No one notices. Nobody sees you. And I said, I think that's horrendous. Yeah. Always be seen, noticed, not in a showy way, but be seen because you're worth looking at. You're valuable. You count. You're important. So you are absolutely right about the ageism, and that accentuates this whole deal of imposter and as-if personality. You can see it in... Now, this is not just women, but women are a little more susceptible to altering their bodies. Yeah. And the older they get, the more they do. And some of them do way too much. And it is promoted in our culture.
I mean, there's beauty and there's also ability. That as the physical ability declines, like you say, we're not going to be in the Olympics anytime soon, past a certain age. And then the beauty, but there's also mental acuity, which affects both men and women, and it can be very. I've read studies about shame, and that we tend to have a lot of shame when we're young, especially high school, college age, when we're just finding out who we are, and then we kind of get into a into a zone where we feel like we kind of know what we're doing and who we are. But then as we get older, a lot of times shame comes back in because of declines in ability and beauty and acuity, really.
Yes, but I'm going to challenge a little of what you said.
Good,
because
yeah.
because I think that beauty is not just an inner position, which it is, but it is also outer. Mm-hmm. And beauty is not just when you are 20 years old. Mm-hmm. Beauty really goes through the entire life cycle. And we have learned in our culture to live with very narrow eyes so that we stop the beauty or the mental acuity at a certain age. And I think it's a travesty against the potential that every person carries. And the question would also be, doesn't it make us older in the sense of with less vibrancy, less mental acuity, and in that shame, we tend to give up.
Yeah. Mm.
Right?
Right, but and then we lose our value to those around us, because there's also wisdom, which is ascribed to the older folks as well, and we hope we're getting wiser.
Yes, but also along with the wisdom, creativity.
Creativity.
Right?
Yes.
Because people, here we come to dreams.
Yeah.
People might say, I have a dream of this and this, but now I'm too old.
Yeah.
Really?
Uh-huh.
What does too old mean?
Mm-hmm.
Listen to the dream. Listen to the possibility that the dream is showing you. And listen, because it's your psyche. Listen to it, because then maybe we help little by little change the view of the world and our Western world and the world of the United States that's way too focused on whatever value youth is, whatever age that is, I don't know, and not valuing that the cycle of life is to be a life cycle. Yeah.
And we're survivors. We older folks, we survived, so we have that.
Well, we do. But Jung had this quite interesting phrase. I'm going to botch it a little and paraphrase it. But he says, "Look we live to a certain whatever age, but if we're living, there's got to be a reason for it, doesn't there?"
Oh, perfect. Yeah, the reason.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, reason.
So we get a purpose even as we get older. Like sometimes people retire and they're like, "What's my purpose now?" I don't know. My whole identity is tied up with the job. But is it finding a purpose at an older age? Is that any different from finding it at other ages, or what do you?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I have found throughout my practice, that, as an analyst, I see people way into their 80s, because maybe into their 90s, maybe their whole life, because why not? Why not learn about who you are and feel good about who you are and live fully who you are? But you said it also with meaning.
Yeah. Right.
Why does meaning go? Yeah. It shouldn't go away.
Right. But, it's harder as we get older. I don't know if it's harder, but it's like when we're younger, it's easier perhaps. Like we have a job, we have kids to raise, we have like a kind of a set role in society. But then later on, those things aren't there anymore. And it's, I guess, what are we left with? We're left with those impulses and following those nudges from inside to find purpose.
I think what we're left with is what we haven't done.
Oh.
So there are certain things we are each supposed to do in our life, And if we haven't done them, then we'll do them later. And I'll tell you, I would think, I'm going to ask you because of the dream story, doesn't that intensify in the dream and in the dream recall the push to find meaning throughout life? And the meaning in your life changes so that if your meaning at one point was your work, maybe your meaning later is something else. Who's to say it's meaningless? It might be meaningful.
Right. But then we kind of have to define it for ourselves. There is no natural cultural sense there in the way that having a job and raising kids is cultural norm for people in middle age.
However, what if, and this is true of a lot of people, they don't follow that norm that you just said.
Yeah, true.
Right? They've always been outside of that norm.
That's true.
And so in a way, they're living differently. But that difference, whatever it is like we all have to live a little differently than what we thought we should do. So living longer gives us the opportunity to live our real self.
Okay.
Because you have to. What else you got to do?
What else you
Right?
Right. Well, this ties in with the other question that I wanted to bring in. I think it's kind of segues naturally, is like the sense of finding where I belong. Like, how is this tied in with authenticity, and at any age, really, but maybe even more importantly as we age?
Yeah, I think it's true all the way through life. Where do I belong?
Yeah.
I mean, I have heard in my practice a lot of people, they can be in their 20s, they can be at any age. Where do I belong? Which really is a question of who am I?
Yeah.
It's not just it's where do I fit with myself, my real self, and where do I fit with others, not in a stereotypical or lockstep way, but I will fit with other people because I'm expressive of myself. And that, in a way, the self should change through life. The persona, a shadow, all the pieces of the personality change through life, not necessarily in a downhill slide, but more like an accordion. It opens out. It opens out like an accordion does.
Say more about that. I want to understand that.
I think the possibilities of being always keep on unfolding. And if we are open to the change in ourselves, and we don't get stuck in, I'm supposed to do this, this, and this, we will open ourselves like an accordion. We will have the courage, well, it takes courage, to really be open to the possibilities that are presenting to ourselves. The other thing that you said, and I think it is important, in our culture and wisdom and aging, in many cultures, not so much in the United States, but in many cultures, the arc of life is much more respected than it is here. However, if each of us respect where we are in our life and live it with meaning and purpose, I think we help change things. Each of us, one by one.
Well, certainly I've read studies that older people tend to be more happy, and that they've learned what works and what doesn't work, and so it's not always the case, but I think there is some things I've definitely learned as I've gotten older that I didn't know when I was younger, and I know about myself and about the way the world works, and expectations have changed and dropping away of expectations.
Yeah, I also think, don't we model for all the people around us, if we are living authentically, we model how to do it. Because actually, you don't really get a brochure of how to be real throughout life. But if you interact, if you interact with people, you pick it up and you go, wow, that person is doing it. Probably I also can be real. We provide a tremendous amount, I think, of hope and desires released if we are living really ourselves with meaning and purpose through our whole life.
Okay, so that it all comes back to that authenticity and looking for the authenticity.
It does. I would ask one other thing.
Yeah.
That also, in relation to dreams, many people of no matter what age, they dream about themselves at different ages.
True. I very much do that. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you've got the child in your dream, right, who is a little boy. So you could say, whoa, what happened at 5? And what did I stop at 5 that wants to be developed now? So the dreams are a guide to keep us moving, to keep us active, not to deny aging. It's not denying it. It's working with it. Working with it.
Well,
and not putting,
Oh, I just was going to jump in and say I've had several dreams also of being much older than I am, and like being aware that I can't walk as well, and we have to be careful, and I can't think as well, and just to, like, a little sense of what that might be like.
But is it also possible that the dreams are a little bit of not just a mirror, but that they also are a little bit of a dress rehearsal, like a preparation? Watch out for this so it doesn't happen. So if your walking is going to be a little something, then it says, pay attention to it now. So that's what I mean about a mirror. They're giving information, and they're saying, this could happen. So I'm telling you, prepare yourself and get strong. Make sure you're strong. Make sure you're able. Do what you can to care about yourself. They're giving wisdom to you.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. That's helpful. So you were talking about that as dreams also kind of provide an invitation. So they wear a guidance of what is coming and what do I need.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I said they're so helpful, because they're giving you a signpost along the way. This could happen, but so prepare for it so it doesn't. Or when it does, you're prepared and as strong as you can be. I think the strength that I'm talking about is not just physically. Your dream is not just talking about physically. It's also talking about psychologically. Keep your balance, keep your strength, keep your ability so that you can have what you want. And you're prepared if that doesn't happen.
Okay, I love that. So what about fake it till you make it? Do I get to do that, or is that being inauthentic?
We're both laughing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning. It takes too much energy
Oh,
to
darn it.
make it.
Okay.
What about doing real so you do make it? And then it says, what do I want to make?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, it points that out in that direction as well.
Excellent. So thank you so much. This is Dr. Susan Schwartz, and her book is The Imposter Syndrome and the As-If Personality, Fragility of the Self. You can get a discount if you order it through Routledge using the code SMA38. And Susan, how can folks get in touch with you?
Well, they can go to my website, www.susanschwartz.com, and there are my numbers, text and phone on there, and my email. Yeah.
Wonderful. So I wonder if you would like to have any final encouragements for the listeners, or any final thoughts you want to get out there at the end of the show?
Look at your dreams, see what they are saying. If you're living yourself really, or if you are not, and have the courage to go outside of the beaten path, into the path of who you really are.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Susan. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure on my part as well. Thank you so very much.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye. All right. So thank you for listening. The Dream Journal is produced at the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, and we are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific. You can listen to the live stream for free at ksqd.org. The podcast is released on the Monday after the show. It keeps us growing when you subscribe, rate, and review. My name is Catherine Bell. You can find out about my dream coaching practice at experientialdreamwork.com. You can email me at catherine@ksqd.org. That's KATHERINE at ksqd.org. Follow Experiential Dreamwork and hashtag The Dream Journal on Facebook and Instagram to find out about upcoming shows. I'd like to thank Rick Kleffel, engineer and music creator, also Tony Russamano. And the intro music you listened to was Water Over Stones, and the outro music is called Everything, both by Mood Science. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, take a minute to write down your dream and bring it to the next Dream Journal.
There's a